All right, so didn't film a video yesterday, so this is Monday. Yesterday was the last day of the FRC certification, and day ended up being shorter than I thought it was. Um, Once it was kind of the first quarter of the way through this day where it really started to sink in terms of the principles that they were actually teaching us and my ability to identify those, and then to realize what Dewey was harping on that first day, which is like, we're not here to teach you a library of exercises. We're here to teach you the underlying principles so that you can sort out these things, figure out these things. Once you know the context of whoever you're dealing with, apply the principles there. Also, I think with that giving us some freedom to craft these things how we see fit, versus like, you have to do this, you have to do it this way, it has to be fun. If you stick to the principles and the core of those principles, basically they're saying you're always going to yield a positive result. You're always going to have some type of progress, right? They clearly defined the notion of stick to your scope of practice. If you're dealing with somebody that is in pain, we are not physical therapists, we're not chiropractors, we're not a doctor. I like that they harped on that. Clarifying the notion of being hands-on on what you can and cannot do. Hunter led us through a kin stretch. Finally, I learned the proper, I kept calling it Kino stretch, but it's kin stretch. He took us through a quick 30-minute session, and he wrecked us, man. My hips, like deep internal, which they said we would, like, everybody comes, if they see them the next day or they post on social media, like deep inside the joint is sore, which is what we want, right? Overall, extremely happy with this. It seemed like a very streamlined certification. They know what they're doing. The core there too, and the refinements that they've done, or something that they briefly touched on. But Seth Gibson is a buddy of mine that lives out here that was at the cert. I mentioned that, and he said this time around it was so much better than his first time 3 years ago, because this is a relatively new modality, and they're fine-tuning things. They're not trying to necessarily reinvent the wheel with those things. They're just trying to polish this. And Seth said it definitely came across. So I would encourage anybody that, I mean, the spectrum is there. Are you dealing with general public? Are you dealing with athletes? Are you dealing with older population? There is a benefit across the board. They also understand that your athlete is doing something that is unnatural with their body. This is to help mitigate some of the damage that they're doing, right? We are meant to throw, but we're not meant to throw all out that many times like a pitcher does over a baseball game. So how do we mitigate some of that so we can reduce the risk of injury and give them longevity in that sport? They're making a ton of money, right? That's something that Hunter and Dewey kept saying, like, they're making millions of dollars. Of course they're getting, like, if I was in their shoes, I'd do the same thing, right? So overall, this was an amazing certification. It's going to feed well into the grip. The thing that happens now is we will have access, I haven't checked, but we're supposed to have access to the rest of the videos on the website. And with that comes a lot of the stuff that we covered in the certification itself, but the tutorial video for something, like certain ones we didn't even cover, with that notion that they are trying to teach us the underlying principles. They're not trying to teach you just a library of exercises. So they're going to cover like the bigger movements. This is how we use it. This is what we're looking for. These are the cars. They taught us everything in terms of like, this is how you have to do this. Start getting to pails and rails, looking at the examples. They didn't go through every single body part. That would just obviously take up too much time. And if you understand the principles, you can then go watch these other videos, the tutorials on that thing, if you're questioning certain things, and that will get you past that, and it will help guide you towards what you're supposed to be doing with your client or yourself in that regard. Plus, there's so many videos that I see with just amazing trainers on Instagram, and now we have access to the the FRC practitioner group on Facebook, that they said if you have questions, like post on there, hit us up, and we'll make the video for you guys as well. So I'm sure I'll actually take them up on that. But the next step for me personally is I got to spend the next 6 months to a year workshopping this, not only with myself, but with my clients. And they understand. I've gone to enough certifications and workshops. I tell them, like, we're going to integrate this now. We're going to apply it. Certain things, if I don't feel comfortable, we're not going to do it. I need to practice more with myself, and then I'll slowly integrate that with you. CARS and the morning routine that they give us, I will for sure teach everybody that, and that'll be part of our warm-up now. I'm definitely curious to see how my body responds over the next handful of months. I'm going to do this every morning. That is my intent with it. As part of, like, right now I just kind of have like a loose stretching routine and a little bit of like dynamic warm-up stuff. This will be the thing that kind of replaces that. Biggest thing for me personally too, and I noticed it with everybody, like hips. Everybody doesn't have control and like full range of motion with their hips actively, right? That notion, and they harp on this, the difference between passive and active for most people is vastly different, and that's what we're trying to do, is get you control in the end range of active range of motion, and to improve that. Passive is always going to be a bigger range of motion for you. Passive range of motion is always going to be bigger than active, but to get those two things as close as possible. One of my favorite ones, Dewey kept calling them Drewisms, or Dreisms, sorry, Drew. Dreisms, which one of them was, and I think it goes both ways, but it was like you'll never regret training the position or range of motion that you get injured in, right? So we use that in MoveNat, which is like, we do a lot of these things. People are like, well, why would I ever use this? And it's like, we train it so that when this does arise, like, you don't get hurt, or we can diminish the injury if there's potential there, because you can't 100% always be safe. Dewey, we talked about all the different ones, or injuries that he's had, which was more relatable because I've had so many myself. But the thing that we talk about with that is like, you'll never regret training these movements when they're needed, right? You're never going to regret that you trained an improved end range of motion and control there, if you hadn't been doing that, that was an injury, or you diminished that injury, right? It was going to be a complete ACL tear, and now it's just like, all right, we kind of sprained the knee. Or we were going to have a full-blown inversion sprain, and it's just like you kind of tweaked your ankle. Or what they said, it's like the difference between like a level 1 sprain and rupturing. And I had a level 3 on my right ankle twice. I know what that feels like. That's just like right before it ruptures. The thing was as big as a softball. I couldn't move it for a week. So anybody that is entering the personal training space, or that has been there for a while, look up FRC. At least watch some of the videos. Try and get just a slight feel, but understand, like, until you go to the cert, those videos, which is one of the things that I learned with this, like, I had zero context for it. You could watch it and like, oh, they're doing some cool stuff. You don't understand the underlying principle and all the stuff that is actually going on. You might see that thing is intense, or that it looks cool, but the principles are really what make this thing special. And with that, now I watched some of these videos and I was like, it was weird. It's like just this thing that clicked, and I was like, holy moly, I understand what they're doing now, why they're doing it. And I also understand that I still have a long way to go. Like, I've barely scratched the surface with this stuff. So I'm excited to spend this next 6 months to a year. I'm probably done with certifications for a while. Right now I'm in a position where I want to take DNS, grip approach, medical exercise, the FRC, MoveNat, parkour, all these things, and kind of mold them into this practice that I want. Figuring out the scales, and honestly spending more time writing and trying to almost create that flow chart of what I want this to be. Not in terms of, because each modality I've done has their own flow chart. FRC had the most detailed, and I'm very appreciative of that. starting with assessment and going down and where you go with that. But now mine is like, all right, this person needs, like, the backbone is FRC or natural movement, and then branching off from there. Here's where we go from there. Warm-ups of this and this and going from there. So I'm going to put, I think I'm going to try and put the handles for Dewey and Hunter for sure on the description of this video. I'll put a link for the website as well, and you guys can kind of check out some of the stuff for yourself. And I'm pretty sure I can find the YouTube channel, and then Dr. Spino's Dre's. I don't know if he has a personal YouTube page. I know he has a personal Instagram, so I'll put that. But I think obviously just under the functional range systems is going to be all the stuff that he's going to be posting anyways. So that is it for this video. Hopefully it brought value. And if you're questioning, like, I don't know if I should do the certification or not, 100% for sure should do it, unless you just don't want to improve as a trainer, which some people don't. They're like, I'm cool doing bodybuilding stuff and all that other stuff that I've been doing for the last couple decades. Side note on that, this will improve all of that though. And that's why I say you should do it anyways. Like, unless you just don't want to, that's hard for me to understand, but if you just didn't want to improve at all, but this feeds into everything. Bodybuilders are using it to increase hypertrophy. Powerlifters are using it to increase safety and strength. And even on the bodybuilding side, to increase safety of the joint. Obviously for sports. And then for your average person, increasing safety, improving the mobility of the body to make sure that you're safe when you do whatever you do, right? Whatever your ADLs are, right? Your activities of daily living are, improving those. So that is it, guys. Like I said, thank you so much for watching the video. If you liked the video, hit the like button for me. Check back soon for more videos, and subscribe if you want to continue to follow along with all my content.